Hey everyone, welcome back to another Vox Live. It has been a little while.
Yeah, we're back at it. Good to see you,
Yeah,
Levi.
yeah. I've been super busy with summer activities with the youth, and those have finally come to a close, so we have a little bit more spare time, so we can get back into doing some videos. So I'm excited to be back online virtually with you and with Jonathan.
Yes, it's
Heck,
good to see you all. I think our topic here today, Levi, I'll introduce in a second. I think it's really good just as people are having change of seasons, getting into the fall and back in school and sports and stuff. So this is a good topic to discuss as people have this seasonal change.
yeah, I agree. And with that, let's just dive right into it. So here at Vox, we do men's and women's groups, and each month we get together and we talk about a shift and how it's easy to want to not do something, but in order to not do something, we then have to shift that time and those energies into doing something else. And so this past month, we talked about the shift away from fault and into responsibility. And I feel like that's such a huge part of just learning to mature and to grow up, is that so often we get fixated on whose fault something is. It's why I use the example in group of why is it that parents don't want their kids to have a pet often is because someone's going to have to take care of the pet. Someone has to be responsible. And a little kid might say, it's not my fault that the dog pooped in the house. And it's like, yeah, you're right. It's not your fault. You weren't the one who pooped in the house, hopefully. Right? Hopefully. It was the dog who did it. However, someone has to be responsible and clean up after the dog because the dog cannot. And so this idea of stop looking for people to find fault and blaming things on, instead learning to take that responsibility for yourself. I like Rustin talks about responsibility means, are you able to respond? And I love that. And just looking around and saying, this trash isn't mine. It's not my fault the trash is here, but I am responsible so I can throw the trash away.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I think with, yeah, like I said, just back to school and after summer vacations and trying to get into a new rhythm and kids in sports, this can be a good time to um, take responsibility for the things that you put on your calendar. And in a way, it is your fault. Your calendar is too full.
Yeah.
And so just thinking through when can I schedule time for rest or the family just to be at home together, not have anything on the calendar. I think those are important things we can look at when trying to apply this practically.
Yeah, I totally agree. When I was in high school, I was very far from academically gifted. Very far from that. And so when I started high school, I took a class called Directed Studies, which was study hall, which just let you do your class right, but it was with a teacher whose job it was to make sure you were actually doing your homework. Basically, study hall, but you have a teacher teaching you both how to study, how to show up to class, how to take responsibility for things. And that's really where I began to learn this lesson, because she would say it's not your fault that you may not be able to master this academic idea as quick as the other kids. It's not your fault, right? Some kids are a little bit more academically gifted, can read faster, have better reading comprehension, all those things. It's not your fault. However, you are responsible to show up for class, have your work done, be ready, and to own your maybe lack of natural ability and compensate that with your responsibility. That's where I began to learn a lot of these things. And so she would talk about, the teacher in that class would tie this in, went to a Christian high school, so she could tie it into the Bible, would always talk about two areas of Scripture that it talked about this. And the first is in Luke 16, verse 10, where Jesus gives a parable, but at the end, Jesus says, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much, and whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. And I think learning to intentionally take responsibility in the little areas of life set us up to take responsibility for the big areas of life. And so just looking around saying, it's not my fault there's trash on the ground, but I can clean it up. It's not my fault that the weather is bad for plans that I had going on, but I can take responsibility and try to work around and plan around and reach out to the people that I need to talk to. And then it sets us up for bigger things in life when it would be easy to point to faults, but instead we take responsibility.
I like that. I think it could be easy for some people who are very responsible to think that maybe this doesn't apply to them, but I think they could flip it and look at it of maybe I am too responsible in some ways. So how can I my responsibility then is to delegate better and ask other people to do things. And so
Yeah,
just kind of flipping it on its head
yeah,
for
I
those
agree.
folks.
I think it's not just about filling it up with work. right? It's
Right.
I like the idea of being able to say, or at least starting this by saying it's not my fault, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not my fault that I can only work this much amount of time before I feel overworked and burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm responsible to myself to set things in motions with good boundaries. That way I have that important time to rest. It's not my fault that work is really stressful, but I am responsible to my family and my loved ones to have good boundaries, to still invest in those important relationships and set myself up for success at home. I completely agree. I think a lot of it has to do with that and just learning that maturity step.
Cool.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything else. Was this
Yeah.
our shortest one here?
It might be. I'm going to give another little Bible example for that, if I can throw that in as well.
Do it.
I think this is best put on display in Matthew 25, where Jesus has the parable of the talents, where in the parable the master gives some currency to all of his different servants and makes them responsible for it. And when he comes back, he expects them to have done something with that money, right? And that there was the one who just put it in the dirt and didn't do anything with it. And I think that is totally how we are with our lives. And too often we don't do things because we say, I'll just kind of return as is, or it's not my fault I only was given this much money. It's not my fault that the servants were given more money than I was given, so I'm just going to take immediately responsibility for what I have and not do anything with it. When really being responsible is learning to live into the gifts that God gave us and say, it's not my fault, but I can be responsible and I can invest wisely and I can put into work these talents that God has given me and accept the responsibility for it when I have to give an account for what I've been given.
I like that. I think, circling back to people who are too responsible, it just reminded me of then their responsibility can be not just delegating things out to others, but and asking them to do things, but also trusting others more. Just like the person that in that Bible story who gave them the money trusted them to do something with it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah, so that is our challenge to you guys. If you guys were able to come to the men's and women's groups, just a reminder of what you guys talked about here today. But if you completely missed it, check out this video and think about that for this month. And I think it's a great, anytime that the seasons are shifting, it's a great time just to look at your life and say, what may I not be at fault for, but what can I take responsibility for as I have an opportunity to begin new habits, begin new things. I feel like oftentimes we only save that conversation for New Year's, right? And instead to go, it's a new season.
Yeah.
It's not my fault that I've been super busy and haven't been able to read. Let's just say, for example, like I've been trying to read more this year and go, man, things have been on my calendar. However, I'm responsible if I actually want to read. How can I learn to delegate, trust other people, hand things off to have more time for the things I want to do in life, to enjoy the life I've been given?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Levi.
For sure.
Thanks for joining us, folks.
Have a good one, guys. See you next time.